our lab does focuses on adaptations that have occurred in populations over many generations in different high altitude environments. So some of our initial work was actually the first to identify genes that are involved in high altitude adaptation in Tibet. I met a hematologist who knew someone in China who was interested in working with Tibetan people, and I was like, sign me up. That combines all of my passions, and wanting to study humans, wanting to help people, wanting to look at the genetic signatures of adaptation and then link that back to their phenotypes or physiology. It's just exploded and become this really great opportunity to study not only people in Tibet but in the Andes.
Cerca de aquí. From here, this is the river rafting. Esa agüita debe estar bien fría. ¿Sí?
We are trying to develop here in Peru a cohort of individuals that we can study over many years, and where we're basically revisiting them, re-phenotyping them, getting again these profiles in terms of their genetics and protein levels, etc., to see how those changes may impact their physiology, and maybe what is a tipping point, where do things start to change and why that might be. By doing those studies in the same people over many, many years, we'll start to finally figure some of that out.
We're in Cerro de Pasco, Peru right now, focusing on how the Andeans have adapted to high altitude living. When you're at high altitude, you have less partial pressure of oxygen, and so, for example, being at about 15,000 feet is the equivalent of having half the amount of oxygen you would have at sea level. And so certain populations live at these altitudes for generations. The Andeans have generally adapted to high altitude by increasing their hemoglobin concentration, and so they have a higher amount of red blood cells circulating throughout their blood, which increases the amount of oxygen that they can transport within their blood. But what we're starting to find out is that after a long period of time, it ends up being maladaptive. And so when they have this high amount of red blood concentration within their blood, they tend to develop certain diseases. One of them is known as chronic mountain sickness, where the blood is literally too viscous for their veins.
So that's definitely one of the things that we see as being more prevalent in the Andean population. So many men, typically over the age of 40, develop this disease. In this particular area, we think it's about 30%. And interestingly, it's not very common in Tibetans. But we're not entirely clear why that is. What sort of changes are happening in these people that lead to this sort of vicious cycle of making too many red blood cells in order to compensate for low oxygen, but it really ends up being a problem in the long run.
They usually come here when they are unsure about their hemoglobin level. They realize that they are turning different to the rest of the people. I think it's because of the cold, the weather. I think that they don't know that much about high altitude as a cause of this condition.
Their fingertips would turn blue, their toes would turn blue, and their lips, because the blood isn't circulating properly.
Pain that they actually may feel in their body. They may report poor sleep patterns. A lot of them have insomnia. Some of them may have actually shortness of breath, so they don't feel like they're getting enough oxygen.
There's no cure for CMS, but we're investigating possible avenues to find therapies for that. And so one of them actually that Francisco Veraferte is working on, he's one of our collaborators, is utilizing simply just exercise and seeing how that affects their hemoglobin concentration.
For years, the thought was that CMS patients have reduced exercise capacity. So we have this idea that exercise somehow reduces different pathways probably, but it will reduce hemoglobin. And then with Tatum, we also tried another route, like try to hemodilute, so bring hemoglobin down acutely. and see the effect of exercise on exercise. We removed hemoglobin, but the exercise capacity didn't improve that much, but didn't make it worse. And it's known that when you reduce hemoglobin at sea level, VO2 or exercise capacity comes down. For many reasons. It can be better oxygenation, it can be some hemolysis probably. We haven't finished analyzing it, but apparently it's working.
We are interested first in understanding why people do well, and we can use that information based on these adaptive traits to also identify why people aren't doing well under conditions of hypoxia. And that's clearly relevant at high altitude, but also in the clinic, where many people may struggle with chronic obstructive lung disease or pulmonary disease, COPD. People also may have sleep apnea, where they have bouts of periods during sleep where they aren't getting enough oxygen. And so we're really trying to understand, what is the sort of individual variation that underlies some of these responses and how they may or may not be detrimental.
There's a high amount of overlap with chronic mountain sickness and looking at any cardiovascular diseases. And so that's why a lot of clinicians will look at our data for chronic mountain sickness and see if there's any overlap with what they're looking for cardiovascular diseases. And a lot of us will work closely with them to see, because it's very similar physiological responses. And so that's any therapy that we have for chronic mountain sickness would hopefully apply for cardiovascular disease and vice versa as well.
For the future, just trying to tie in and really synergize with all the different disciplines together. Because really the big question and an unanswered question in this field is, what is like cause and effect of some of these things? And so if we can look longitudinally, we can start to see what happens first. We can understand these pathways in these like model populations, really, or like these natural experiments, then maybe we can apply that to other groups. I feel like we're finally at the stage where we can do these cross-population comparisons. Like that just hasn't been done at this level before. The whole field is sort of developing into this more genomics arena, I guess, that it just hadn't entered before. But now the technology is advancing, we're getting more data, we can start to really explore the genetic differences in those